Hi, Amira.
Hi Dana.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, all is good. How was your Eid?
How's the Alhamdulillah, how's the baby?
So cute.
MashaAllah.
We're very,
How's the
very
mother? How's the mother المسكينة? How is she coping بالحاجات؟
كده. Alhamdulillah, she's because she had a C-section. فالحمدلله that's
Yeah.
خلاص بتعدي. But the whole because she's nursing and like not enough
Yes.
milk and she has to pump and then feed,
Yes.
pump in between and
صح صح.
so yeah, a bit of a challenge there, but you have to go with it.
لا yes it is يا حبيبتي يعني كله a whole readjustment of everything يعني life is never the same
No, no, no.
yes after the baby يعني and ربنا يعينها إن شاء الله إن شاء الله.
Thank you. Thank you. عقبالك.
Oh yeah. يا رب يا رب بس first
الله.
يعني يعملوا informed decision
Yes.
وينقوا البارتنر المظبوط this is
الله.
my I think this is my most like concern now يعني especially for my eldest
Mm.
uh, impulsive كده وعاطفية وبتحب على روحها so
That's not a bad thing. That's
I
not
don't know يا دانا
a
لا يعني I would want her to be يعني شوية more anchored more grounded know
yeah,
herself a little bit better
yeah,
وبعد كده okay uh, yeah because I discovered it's يعني it's not a matter of age يعني أنا but I feel إنه my younger is more mature than the than her other sister
mm.
ف it
But
could
this, I
be.
think, isn't this typical of first and second children?
Yes, I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe. I don't know also if, yeah, I don't want to hijack the thing. If I told you this, she recently has been diagnosed with ADHD,
Yes, you told me.
my eldest,
Yeah.
which explained a lot يعني
Mm.
of things. فدلوقتي هي بقى خلاص getting into the routine إنه knowing what things good for you what things not bad for you.
Yeah.
Okay, she also diagnosed with celiac يعني الceliac first وبعدين ال ADHD.
Right. But
ف
no, I mean, in the holistic world, uh we just look at these things as labels, right? So it's just an imbalance. And the fact that she got celiac just shows us it's an imbalance in the gut. She
yes,
she
yes,
rebalances that imbalance and all of those symptoms go away.
true.
Yeah.
حقيقي yes yes يعني we keep finding out يعني وأنا I think it started with me when I joined your
Yeah.
program and then
Yeah.
the rest of them are like like you people hear me now you see me now
Yeah.
food
Yeah.
does make a difference in
Yeah. Of
the way you eat and
course.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome, ladies. Hi, Marianne. Hi, Dina. Hi, Rania. Welcome, welcome. Amira and I were just catching up about kids,
Yes.
daughters, things like that. I hope everybody had a great Eid holiday and relaxed. Dina, it's very early for you, isn't it? Are you joining us like at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Canada time? I think so. Lovely to have you. Right. So we are going to go into it's 7. Yeah, I thought so. And Delia Nabil is also joining us now. Hi, Delia. We are going to go into season of migration to the north, but I have been getting some questions, privately messages about the detox. So we don't need to go deep into questions about the detox, as we'll do that in depth next week. So, but if you have some basic questions for me before we get into the book, we can do that now. Some basic questions if you feel totally confused, totally lost, you should be just doing clean eating until Thursday. Thursday, you start fruits only detox. That was all outlined. So if anybody has just, basic questions about getting the process started, we can start with that. And then otherwise, we'll go straight into the book.
For
Well,
how
hi
long did
everyone.
that?
Oh,
Sorry.
wow. Okay. Raise your hands. Raise your hand.
Uh,
One by one. Okay.
uh, well, I thought I will not start with it at the moment because in 2 weeks we have Easter. So I will keep the fasting until Easter and then, inshallah, I will start then after that.
Okay. I mean, you're doing vegan anyway, right?
Yes,
Okay. So that's fine. That's perfectly fine for you, Marianne. No problem at all.
okay.
All right. Anybody, because we are going to do this long term. I'm not going to give you an end date.
Okay.
There's no end date because I don't want your mind to start playing tricks on you and to tell you, oh, this is just something you're going to do temporarily. You only have to do this for 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, 60 days. Not going to give you an end date. I want you to think of this as a journey that you're going to really enjoy every little bit of slowly, gradually, day by day. Because I think when we give it an end date, I've just been through experience, you start to think of it as a diet because diets have start and end dates. So we're not going to give it an end date. We're going to just look at this as a journey of discovery, a journey back into your body. Healing with fruits is the it's 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 the easiest. It seems the hardest, but it's actually one of the easiest ways to really get back into feeling the lightest that you can feel, the sweetest that you can feel, back to your true lightest feminine energy. So we don't want to put a deadline on that. We want to go through that day by day as a deep exploration of yourself and what comes up for you during this journey. So no end date. All right. Any other questions?
Hi, Dana.
Hi,
How
Delia.
are you? Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was wondering about protein. Do we need any sort of protein supplement or, I mean, powder, anything?
Nothing. You need
No.
nothing. We are letting go of everything and just focusing on what is the most healing. And fruits are even more so than vegetables, the most healing foods on the planet. So this is what we're going to do. What I will do for some of you have been messaging me with very specific issues. If you do have a specific concern, let's say joint pain or maybe hair loss or something, there is something that we can, in terms of fruits, in terms of natural add-ons, that we can incorporate as we're doing a fruit detox. So if you do have something specific, let me know and I will put together sort of maybe an additional document with and come sort of combine all the different conditions and symptoms that everybody has, and then what additional fruits might be specific to that condition or something that can really help you move forward a little bit more effectively. I can do that. But in terms of supplements, protein, shakes, powders, none of that. So do let me know if any of you have a specific issue that you want to be able to work on reversing or eliminating.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else, ladies, before we get into this book? All right. Okay. So, season of migration to the north. Um, So this is again one of the books I read a long time ago, and as you read it as a young adult, very different than when you read it as an adult, maturing adult. I think what struck me most this time about this book was the violence. I didn't, the violence didn't strike me as much the first time around. Maybe, the first time I read this book, I was actually not that young. I was 30, not that young. But I didn't see the violence the way that I saw it now. I didn't see the violence against the women. I didn't see the symbolism of that as much as I saw it this time. So I was very curious as to your take on this specifically. This is just one starting off point that we can get into. But the symbolism of the violence against the women basically the interactions between the male characters and the female characters really for me was, and maybe because of the current political, state that we're in the world today, it was so clear to me the symbolism of East versus West in the relationships between the men and the women, and the violence between them back and forth, and the totally unfounded expectations that they each have of each other, that the sort of the North versus the South, and how they each see each other in this really idealistic, romantic way, and then it just ends up destroying each other. And they can't really get along. I don't see that they ever get along. I was wondering, this is the first thing that struck me about the book, reading it 20 years later. So I was wondering if anybody has thoughts about that. Have you all finished the book? Read and finished the book, first of all? Who has? Amira and Delia. Anybody else? Oh, okay, great. Almost everybody. Rania? Who has thoughts about the violence? Marianne, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Well, I read the book. I mean, the beginning was good, but then mid until the end, in a way, I was shocked because of the language of the book, the violence, as you said, and it gave a bad impression in the West about the East. Yeah. I mean, this person who went to the UK, and then he played on many women, and many of them committed suicide and died and so on. And then when he came back to Sudan, then I mean, all these things came out. As I said, I did not like the second half of the book, also because of its sexual language. Yeah, it's my opinion.
Yeah, no. What,
Yes.
go ahead. Who has? Amira?
Yes, yes, violence is also something that struck me, and I think this time I chose to read the book in Arabic. I thought, how would it feel,
Okay.
in its own sort of, author's language,
Yeah.
and would my reaction, or engagement, just change, and it did. Yes,
Hmm.
the violence and using sex as a weapon,
Yeah.
like weaponizing sex. Okay, sex as in, instead of intimacy, connection, bonding, affection, whatever. No, it's a tool. It's like a war machine, kind of, and you didn't feel any of the sexual scene, that again there was this sort of delicacy and intimacy. No, it's as if it was is portrayed to inflict pain, pain on women. And I couldn't help but also see the parallels between that women are the victim, either in the East or in the West. Okay, because Mustafa, the protagonist Mustafa, he uses, sex to enchant sort of, women, and he drives them either to madness or suicide, or or whatever. But at the same time, Husna, his wife, also the woman from the village in Sudan, okay, at the end of the novel, she also is, has, pain, go through pain and violence through sex, or during, this old man, trying to have sex with her, because she was his, became his lawful wife.
Yeah.
So yes, again, the violence is, it's too much. Yes, and victim. I see victims as women, of course.
Yeah.
More than men in the novel.
But a lot, if you were what his action, Mustafa's actions though, can be seen as, can be interpreted as uh,
Mm.
a very a form of revenge, post-colonial
Yes.
revenge, right? Symbolic, right? Of
Yes.
how
Yes.
the South is taking revenge on the North for the way that they basically ravaged them, you know. So he's ravaging them. It's not,
Yes, ravaging would be, yes, the correct,
yeah,
term in this
yeah.
context,
He's
definitely. Yes.
he's getting his revenge on what was done to him. Like, you know, and this is sort of the theme of, and this is why, because Husna was also seen as a little bit different,
Yes, then
right?
traditional women, yes, in
She was
in the
seen as a
village.
little bit different to the traditional women. She
Yes.
wasn't seen as a typical Sudanese woman. And you feel like her husband wanted to, you know, get that out of her. He wanted to tame her. Like, you know,
Mhm.
was she to be his wife for 2 weeks and not
Yeah.
allow him, you know, access?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the violence for me is very symbolic of of war. They just use humans in this
It
instance.
is true. There is, as you say, this sort of metaphoric, or symbolic, violence and actual violence. I also stopped at the passages which I find very funny. When the old man, like the narrator's grandpa, and this with the Rais, and then this woman, Bint al-Makzoub, the old woman, and they're talking about very openly and almost in a vulgar way, again, about intercourse, about sex, and how they're talking about like female sort of, the circumcision or genital mutilation, as a very, like a normal act, you
Yeah.
know. Like it's not that you're sort of butchering out, or cutting, mutilating, a woman's body,
Yeah.
but they're just, but at the same time, I kind of had a moment of national pride when in the book they mentioned that why couldn't we be like, women of Egypt, like, like Egyptian women, it's fine, they're not circumcised,
Yeah.
and and a bit overgeneralized statement.
Yes.
But again, the between the physical actual, violence, and the symbolic violence for a reverse colonialism, or whatever they call it. Yeah.
Anybody else have similar reactions?
Yes, I saw the violence, but actually I saw it in all the books that I've read so far.
Mm.
But the difference between the West and the East here is how they took it to a physical level as well. It was much more, but then the oppression of women was in all the books, to be honest.
Yes.
Also, I felt so I did read it in English, and some of the things that were translated, I wish I had read it in Arabic because I know, like, when he said the translation would be على الطلاق, and they
Yes.
translated it in English. I was like, seriously, and
Yes.
that was funny. Also, I felt because I've been living in the UK for 7 years, and it struck home that the familiarity, something you look for all the time. Sometimes it's hard. When he said in the very beginning that he wanted to see all the familiar faces, to go back, even though he's changed, he's very open-minded, he has knowledge, but he did want to come back to feel home. However, home is not the same anymore. So that's more of the familiar, but it's just there is a different version of himself after going there. So I feel like, and about Mustafa, he's a lost soul. Sorry, he's a lost soul. He doesn't belong. So I felt the sense of belonging thing. Um, I related with that so much.
I think many of us who, whether we've actually moved out of Egypt or not, but simply having been educated in
Mm.
the British way or the American way or the German way, on some level, we feel like we're in between. Like we're not really 100%, you know, Middle Eastern, Egyptian, Arab, whatever you want to call it. but we're not also 100% British, Canadian, American, whatever it is. And I think that's definitely one of the themes here, right? And that's when it says season of migration to the north, right? Typically, it's the north who comes down to the south, like the colonizers who come down to the colonized and take over the culture. And this is about the reverse migration. This is about, right, we've been colonized and now it's sort of our turn to go back up and to either infiltrate or try and become one with them. And then you see that it's actually not possible. It can be destructive, as we see with his relationships with the women, completely destructive, or it creates a lot of confusion, and you're not sure about your identity. Am I here or there, or am I a combination of both? So I think that's definitely something that the author, I would have loved to read this in Arabic. The translation is quite brilliant, I have to say. It's really spot on. But you get that feeling, you get the frustration of the characters uh of being in limbo. They're neither here nor there.
Yes, and I love that when they said they're just when someone asked about women in Europe, and he said they're just regular people,
Yeah.
and it's very true because they have struggles. They have there is a similarity, but at the same time there is a huge difference. And when you sit with people and you don't share the same history or culture,
Yeah.
it's different. Even though
Yeah.
you're friends and everything, there is a part that's missing.
Yes.
Mm.
So,
Yes,
I don't know, in the versions that you all had, did you read if you had an introduction written by the author? Did you read that?
yes, yes.
It was very interesting to read. I mean, he wrote it in 1966.
66, yeah.
Yeah, so like right after like
Mm.
colonialism ended in most of the Middle East. And I was very because I don't remember reading this before, that his book was banned,
Mm.
you know, I think it was probably for the sexual scenes and all of that. That in many countries it was banned before it was finally, now it's readily available. I'm not sure that it would still be banned anywhere, but that was very interesting to me because it was so, for me, it's not a sexual book. It's so clearly
Mm.
symbolic,
Yes.
of the tension of the North versus South. It was interesting to me that as a Middle Eastern author, he would be banned for depicting that struggle. Um, but no, that's just something I wanted to share. I was surprised that it was banned.
Yes.
Yeah.
But going back to symbolism again, you know, uh, one of the again very recurrent thoughts about Mustafa. طب, okay, he keeps repeating, I came here to invade you.
Mm.
Okay, I came here to مش عارفة to whatever you. Okay, but يعني dude, you're using the same exact tools and you are reinforcing Orientalist exotic image the West have of the East. يعني for when in any scene where he's supposedly luring out a woman, he uses the incense.
Yeah.
Okay, and his ebony glowing whatever color, his physique, his potency, all of those stereotypical conceptions and ideas the West have of the East. So again, I feel like يعني Mustafa, okay, uh, this was your round of revenge, and this was sweeping off the West, but you couldn't even be original in that. You use what the West and how the West portrays you and labels you and
It's
frames
not
you.
just how the West portrays, but it's also it's how the West, it's when you see how the women respond to him, right? And the way they idealize and romanticize his physical attributes, okay? And they love that. I mean, they come into his rooms and they love the incense.
Yes.
And they love, so I think this was, I mean, colonialism, I think, had much deeper in terms of the powers, right? They had more uh their intentions with colonizing the countries was more uh, what's the word? It was all about the economics, right? It's like what can they
Yes.
extract from these countries? But there was
Shallow exploitation, yes.
but there was definitely
Mhm.
there was a kind of romanticism and mysticism about it also. I think
Yes.
he was very smart. He knows that your average English person, okay? Not the military, not the government who know they're coming in to exploit, but your average English girl is just going to romanticize,
Yes.
Africa,
Yes.
you know? And
Yes.
so he just took advantage of that. He just needed to just turn on a little bit of his, African charm, and he knew that's exactly what he needed to get his revenge.
Yeah.
And in a sense, isn't that what actually happened in reality when it comes to colonialism?
Wow.
I don't know. I thought
Yeah.
okay, it was very calculated. He was evil, right? He turned it around. But when you think of what the colonialists did to the colonized country, but it was the same thing, but much less romantic and
Y- yes. But I don't know. I mean, I think again, I stopped at that. Him, okay, giving them the image or the frame that they had, put the East in, early on, okay, since they stepped into or decided to step into the East, okay. That's again, those men, because they are dark, so necessarily they are better in bed.
Mm,
Those men, have charm, and have an aura of sort of mysticism,
yeah.
or what do you call it, or mystery around them, okay, because they can speak in different language, because they can say some spells, do some acts, again, the thing, ideas. I mean, in some scenes you could see that his premises, Mustafa, it's like a what you call it, like a boudoir, or like a harem
Yeah.
kind of setup thing,
Yes.
okay. So he's giving them this experience, okay. And I think that maybe with some of the old, I'm sure some of the old generations of colonizers had this view, and some of them even thought that genuinely, that they have come to civilize, those poor savage,
Yeah.
poor savages, barbaric, whatever, I remember I had a chat, more than one chat, with several people here in the UK, and like old people, okay, they do believe, especially some of them have spent years in Kenya,
Mm,
they do believe that they were on a mission
yeah.
to civilize the people, and that this was not a colonization, this was helping and educating the people. So until this day, this old generation, maybe those who went to World War II or something, still believe that. So yes,
So maybe he
that's,
was just super smart and
he
their
was, he
own
was.
their own mentality to reverse revenge.
Yes, so Mustafa, yes, Mustafa wanted to defeat them in their own battle using their own weapons, and tools. I mean,
Yeah.
he was so smart. He was genuine, like a genius, the kind of smart. And maybe in the different life, Mustafa, يعني, he embodies the best of the East. Okay, the charm, and I don't know, this and that, and also the knowledge, of the West. But it came, as you say, it came, or as I think Dalia said, it came at the expense of him being tortured, and a demonized a creature.
Dina, you had your hand up.
Yes, hi guys. I'm half asleep, so I'm just gonna say my 2 cents here. So basically, I agree with Dana that this is a revenge. This is a revenge against the white supremacy. He was trying to prove that I'm better than you. Especially, I saw this especially when he was in court and he was describing how the jury was looking at him, what they were saying, and that he felt he didn't feel remorse
Mm.
to anything that he did. I think he felt pride. And at some point, again, he was super smart, like you all guys said. He was doing it to get over that complexity of having been colonialized and using women as objects in the story to show that, okay, I am better than you. I am going to get you down on your knees. I'm going to make sure that you guys see that I am powerful, or that the East is powerful, and that you cannot come in and just decide what we're going to do. We have our own traits. We're going to get this through, and this is the way it's going to happen. So yes, there was a part of revenge. Yes, there was a part of symbolizing women as objects. But at the same time, you know what? A part of me didn't feel too bad about the West women somehow. I don't know why. Because sometimes I feel that they feel that they're superior to other races. And I also felt that this is how we perceive them as well from the East, especially when the villagers asked about, okay, how do they look like? How do they act? What do they do? And then, and then whether it was Mustafa or whoever said that they're just like humans like us,
It's the authors.
So for me, I didn't feel, I don't know, it might sound very malicious, but yes, I felt bad and everything. But at the same time, with everything also that's happening in the world right now, I
Mm.
just felt like, okay, you guys are not superior than any of us, That white supremacy, that aura that you guys have around you, that he was trying to defeat all that.
Or at least he was going at it with the same degree of evil that they came at them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you look at it from today's perspective, it's what we're living, right? We're being beaten up, we're being taken advantage of, and what are we doing? The evil is there, right? And our reactions are very subtle because we don't want to be seen as they want to portray us, as the stereotypes in their minds. So we're just like being cautious of what we're saying. We're just being extra cautious of what we're doing. We cannot say exactly how we feel.
Much
That's how
less extract revenge.
yeah, that's how I see it personally.
Yeah, actually, I also liked the difference between the author and Mustafa because the author kind of kept his values. So he did have the knowledge of the West, but he kept his values and he tried to help with it. So I think it's the same now. If we can hold on to our values, but then be more assertive, it would make a difference. We don't need to completely change to be like them, like Mustafa, to be extremely violent and aggressive, but at the same time, we need to stand up for ourselves.
But yet
Well,
you really admire
I
them though.
yes, I agree and disagree with one point of, with Talia. I don't see the narrative. I agree that you could always make a choice, taking a different path, of course, okay. But I don't see the narrator, better than Mustafa, because I also see him as passive. I don't see him having agency, like he's the one in the beginning of the narration. You think that, okay, he seems stable enough, he seems standing on solid ground enough, he seems anchored to his roots and his legacy, better, okay. But when the real test comes, okay, and the real test represented in Husna, okay, when Husna, okay, what the Rais, he wants her, her father said yes, her brother said yes, okay, he didn't do anything to stop it, even though, he had feelings for her. And even though, he could have saved her. And when his Mahgoub, his friend, when Mahgoub told him, okay, why don't you marry her yourself? Okay, the obstacle was not that the narrator was already married and with kids, because you could tell that it's okay in this, kind of community or society to take more than one wife. He didn't do anything. Okay, so yes, it is. We don't feel that the evil, that Mustafa possessed, is as present and as big as with the narrator. But at the same time, he did not have, enough spine, enough agency, okay, to stand his and start changing the thing, being the one who's been abroad, has the highest, education degree, returned, and he was the one who was happy when he returned, that, familiar faces, familiar aromas, the hustle and bustle of the village. So you could feel that he is in his real element, in his own medium. He's happy, content. But then you could have started the change yourself, be the change, as they say, and he couldn't afford it. So this is one thing. Yes, I take against him. He could have saved, Husna, but
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, and maybe he expected also the change from his friend who didn't know as much. He expected
yes.
the change from the
So
simple
yes,
people. So
yes, the narrator and Mahgoub represent people who could see and identify the wrong, and know that it's wrong, but at the same time they like sort of bystanders in a way, like, they don't take action, okay, they don't make effort to fight the status quo. So it's as if also each of them is defeated in his own way. Mahgoub is defeated because he thought that he is entitled to have a higher official, sort of status, or a political, rank, but he didn't. And the narrator describes himself as like a secretary. He says, we are just, officers. We do as they tell us. We're not decision makers.
Hmm.
So one thing I thought about is maybe it would take another 1 or 2 more generations. Like you see it with Mustafa as the heaviest, you see it more diluted, with the narrator and Mahgoub. So maybe a 3rd or 4th generation would be more capable, of having the balance, and finding their way between the East and the West. That's my thinking.
I felt like he was still too much of an outsider, the narrator.
Yes, أيوة.
Too much of an outsider where he could they might, sort of respect him for having gone and gotten his degree, but like they said, he studied a subject that was of no use to them. So he wasn't somebody who necessarily had anything to add to them, because he went and got educated in poetry, and they kept saying, we don't need poetry, we don't need literature here. So that could be part of it. But I think he just, as many people who migrate and come home feel, too much of an outsider where he can make an impact at that point.
Yeah, at that point.
At that point.
Yes, yes. Also something that also that we see a pattern of, and when those people that go abroad to study, when they come back, they rarely stay in their villages. He is in Khartoum, he's in the capital city.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think this village is far out, from Khartoum. So it is those villages that needed, the most, help, and caliber, of its own people. But again, we need also to put this in perspective in terms of the time. These were the 60s, okay? It's written in the 60s, and they speak about a time post the 19, maybe the 50s, and and early 60s. So at the time, the world was not as open as it is now, so the village would be secluded. They have to walk, I don't know, 5 kilometers, to reach a school. So also giving the perspective, it needed more time and more people, more agents of change, to make any kind of tangible kind of change or better life.
Yes, I do agree about all this, but the only thing that's with him that he kept the East's image good with his values.
The
This
narrator.
is what I felt. So, yes.
Well, we just
I
didn't
don't
feel
know,
like
Dalia,
didn't
again.
feel like he wanted revenge.
He didn't want revenge, but again, what good is a local, a national, who spends few years studying, being exposed to different culture? You come back, you see the wrong, you see wrong practices, you see,
Yes,
okay,
definitely he's passive. Definitely.
yes, and then you don't do a thing. And this also, like, sort of, and we see this happening, like, I mean, even our circles, think about, in our, family or friend circle, how many people they go, okay, or are exposed, they don't have to necessarily travel, but are exposed to different education, different thing, different way of thinking, okay, but then, okay, when it's their role, or it's their time to make a change, okay, they just keep silent or passive, okay, or tell themselves, I'm helpless, how can I change, whatever. And it needs to start somewhere,
But maybe what happens is you get the feeling when you come back that maybe the perception of you is that you're just another version of the colonizer. So you're just rejected. I mean, who says that when they migrate to the north and they receive the different education and then they come back, who says that that's better? According to who is that better? Like if we just take the novel, Sudan and the UK, okay? Who says that what they learned in the UK was better than what they learned in Sudan? Or needs to be applied in Sudan? But this is again, it's like they still like, do they want to be colonized but by themselves? So do they
it
just
is I,
want, maybe that's just it's a refusal, and maybe he inherently feels it when he comes back, okay? And they tell him we don't need literature. We don't need this education. And that could be just a way of just rejecting the colonizer completely. Like we don't need this. Don't come here with your literature and what you learned in the UK. That's not needed here.
okay, but following this logic, you could go to the UK, and learn things that are beneficial to your own, local environment or context. Like Mustafa, he had this in economics or whatever, he was good for this, good for that. Okay, and it's not also, I don't see it as a better or worse thing. I just see it as any opportunity that would make you revisit, you know, uh, your conceptions, your perceptions, your beliefs, any opportunity that would be an eye opener or helping you to see things differently. Okay, because when you are in it, immersed in it, sometimes you don't see. Okay, and sometimes you can see it, but you don't know where to start or how to change it. So education in general, enlightenment in general, it doesn't have to be the UK or the US or or India or whatever, but it is just that you start to see things differently. And I think that's the most important thing, is seeing things differently and then deciding, yes, this is good, that legacy is good, we want to keep this 1, 2, 3, 4, but 5 and 6 need to be adjusted or even changed or transformed altogether. So, and again, going back to women, okay, and to genital mutilation, it's okay with them. And also when you see this woman, Bint al-Makzoub, okay, something also I made me think when she describes, that there is nothing, more sexy than a Sudanese woman, I don't know what, opening her legs, waiting for this, waiting for that. And in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute, lady, okay, you have your part chopped off, okay? How can you just portray the experience, and it's as if, you are really enjoying it, okay? And at the same time, accept that they are chopping off, this part of you, okay, which would really give you the feeling, and make you live the experience, as you should. Okay, so
It's the
also,
main author.
sorry?
It's the main author. I mean, like, it doesn't reflect our reality. It's just in his own mind that this is how we must have, like, more we must feel, but it's not true, of course. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really a woman that is really sharing how she's feeling. If it was a female author, that would have been a completely different story.
Uh, I,
No,
well,
can you expand on that, Sandra? I'm not sure I understand.
So what I mean is, like, from a male author, he's saying like the best thing is so and so. I mean, he doesn't even know how we feel if that part is taken away from you. So I mean, I don't take his word for it like for granted. I mean, like, it's just a male author describing something that female are feeling. So of course it's not true.
Well, I mean, anatomically speaking, right? And I've worked with several sort of like sex coaches and things like that. Anatomically speaking, having, the female, the clitoris is not a precursor to pleasure, right? Because there's different types of pleasure. There's different types of orgasms. You can have a clitoral one, you can have a vaginal one, you can have a cervical one. There's many different types of internal ones where if you theoretically were circumcised, you could still feel even more pleasure, technically, from what I've learned from these modern day European American sex coaches. That's anatomically speaking. So I'm guessing that if you never had that part of you, then automatically your body's going to go for the other ways to have pleasure. When you have, the clitoris is the easy way, is the obvious way. And it's very fascinating when you go into this, that there's literally 4 or 5 or 6 different types of ways for women to have pleasure. It's not just that way. I'm not saying that that's what he was referring to or that he was even aware of it, but that it's not a precursor. If you are circumcised as a woman, that doesn't mean you will not have pleasure.
well,
That's besides the argument for or against.
yes.
Strictly
Yes.
anatomically speaking.
Yes, I mean, I'm not a doctor, I mean, I've read things that says that, no, in the clitoris, it has this sort of bundle of nerve web, whatever, but that's what, as you say, that's physicians. But I saw it as how women are conditioned, to believe and feel things that maybe are not real, okay? But it's women conditioning. I saw conditioning, at its highest. Okay, that again, you're supposed to act like okay, like not act like you're enjoying it. And you're part of it. Okay, when it's really being conditioned. Okay, and even in the novel, Bint al-Makzoub, who's the only female character we have that openly speaks about this. The way she's portrayed, she's got some sort of masculinity around her. Her voice, okay, the way she smokes, the way she sits, the way she cracks sort of obscene jokes. So also she's not like a typical sort of feminine female figure. So even the one who speaks about those things, okay, is portrayed as like some sort of man-like woman. So yes, that's it.
What do you think? Why do you think he did that?
Uh, well, I see it again as a very what's the word? Misogynist society, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, where men have the upper hand, have the final say and word about how women, should feel when it's only what they think.
Yeah.
Okay, women think and feel, but no, this
Yeah.
is not true. So there is no, yes, it's as if he's telling us that there is no woman as a female would actually share this majlis of men, and would exchange views on very sensitive, and even taboo, topics. Okay, she has to be old, number one. Okay, that's her permission. She has to have a permit. So one of the permits is her age. This woman is past her prime years. Okay, and number two, she impersonates some masculinity around her. The way she sits, her body language, the smoking, the voice, the pitch. Okay, so it's in a way telling us, I mean, that's how I read it, that this society cannot take a woman like Husna, for example, to share this majlis or to be part of this gathering, or no, you have to be old age, because then you can be excused. Then you cannot apply filters to what you say because you're old. She's an old woman, like the mad old woman or whatever, the amusing kind of mad old woman. Society cannot, at the time, could not yet take it that, a woman in the age of Husna, with Husna's beauty and charm, to, to voice out desires and feelings and thoughts. No.
Also, I think that I didn't feel that he was specifically talking about women. I think how they feel, but how I read it is that how they give pleasure to men
Yes.
as well. So it's not that they are enjoying or not. It's how they offer things.
Yes. Object again. Yes.
They're not seen.
Yes.
Old.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's not how they take it in.
Yes, thank you for that. Because even when they want to put the words used by the, by Tayyip Saleh, is يعني طبعا through one of his characters, in the woman like dresses up, is put all the whatever oils and this, and then she sort of reclines and open her legs. So this is all a role of, that's her part. تمام, you don't feel that she is an active
Yes,
sort of, صح, انه
just
equal,
seduction.
في equal, يعني في equal partnership, ولا it takes two to tango as they say. لا, هو ما فيش two, هو one بيتانجو.
Well, I mean, he definitely talks about, like, it's definitely a major theme, the oppression of the women. But on another level, aren't they then symbolic of Sudan and all the colonized countries that basically they do nothing? Like,
Yes.
get screwed, right? They just symbolically open their legs.
Yes.
The colonizer comes in, takes everything he needs, takes everything he wants, gets all the pleasure, and the colonized / woman is just done.
Yes.
It's finished.
And convince you that you're happy.
And convince that
while doing
this
it.
is good for you. That this is good for you, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes, in many ways, yes. And you think, if you, again, going back to Dana, when you say, again, the symbolism and the colonization, I see it as cascading. So it's the UK, the British Empire against Sudan. Okay, and then within Sudan you have a male over a female, or men over women. Okay, so there's always this idea of the oppressor or the persecutor, and the oppressed or the persecuted. Okay, and you've got this again, what they call it, is it the Stockholm syndrome, when you fall in love with your oppressor, or you want to imitate. Yes, you want to imitate him. Yes.
Well, that's what Mustafa does, right? But he learns it. What's it when you become better than your teacher?
Master. Yes.
You overcome your master, and
yes,
he goes back and takes what he's learned and exacts his revenge completely.
But then again, when he said that the grandfather knew the secret, I think the secret that they didn't want change. They just wanted it as it is.
To keep it, yes,
Simple.
yes,
That,
keep the
that's
status
us.
quo.
This
Yes,
is,
keep it. Yes. I
And
mean,
this is what I was saying, like why are we assuming that the knowledge they gained, that they want to bring back, why are we assuming that this was going to be better for them? Why are we assuming that they should take this and that they should come and implement this change?
Yes,
no,
I
the
actually
change
want
might
to
be
say
just,
something.
sorry.
Sandra, go ahead.
Sorry, Delia. No, I just wanted to say like something about that because, you know, like having lived in Canada for 8 years, and then I studied something that was expected of me, like when I come back, that I have to implement it here. I studied something that has to do with people who are visually impaired and blind. So, and of course, yes, in Egypt we do have this need, but when coming back, I just didn't want to do it here. So, and everyone was like making me feel guilty. It's like, you studied abroad and you did that, and like, why don't you come and share your knowledge with like people here because they need it? And so I don't have an answer to that, but I just wanted to share that I was in the same spot. And actually, yeah, about Mustafa in the story, I don't think Mustafa was there so he can come back and benefit his people or anything like that. He was just selfish. If it wasn't for anything, he would have been there, like in London till the end. But I mean, because of the situations that he put himself into it, that's why he decided to come back. But I don't think he was doing it for the good of his people. I don't know.
I think he, because of the trial, because of his jail time, he really didn't belong anymore. I don't think he had a choice except to come back to where he would be, more readily accepted in his homeland, I would say. I think as a ex-convict, I guess that's what they call them when they come out of jail, and as a Middle Easterner and as a dark man, I mean, I don't think he would have been readily uh been able to sort of just refit in back into British society. I think he came back because he had no choice.
Mustafa, actually, when he came back, we find through Mahgoub that he was the driver behind many projects and many ideas that benefited his community in the village. Okay, because again, he was very smart. He had the education. He has the brains for it, but for some reason, he preferred not to have the spotlight on him, not to be known, in the village that it is Mustafa, who was behind this or that. But at the same time, when Mustafa returned, I think I see him as a very bruised, person. Like his old scars, like soul, and because he chose this path to have the revenge, okay, against the colonizer. But he lost his soul, and maybe his soul was lost early on, even before he decided to take revenge. Also, I think about that, how Mustafa is portrayed at the start of the novel. Okay, we don't see him having roots. They don't talk about his background. His father is not in the picture at all. It's just his mother. Okay, so also maybe another person who was more deeply rooted and on more solid grounds in his own culture, okay, would have behaved differently towards colonization, would have taken a different path, or would have taken revenge differently than Mustafa did. But Mustafa is this person, again, who is taken. His mother just tells him, okay, do what is good for you. So you see him also like some sort of I don't know, like some sort of a feather, and just not anchored. And this added to his, again, trauma or turmoil, of his mind. So he could not stay in the UK. He was not happy in the UK. We could see he was very cynical. His tone while describing his own lawyers defending him in his trial. He was very cynical about everything. You could see the contempt, you could feel the contempt, and the disdain, he has towards, English people. So he would not have stayed. It's as if he was there on a mission.
Yeah.
Yes. So mission done. He returned. And even when he returned, he chose Husna because Husna comes from a tribe that do not necessarily mandate that the person is from a known tribe or that the person, family goes, way back, in the Sudanese culture. He chose a girl from a tribe that is not really picky. And I get that this is from the book, that this is something at the time very important for Sudanese, marriage arrangement, that you have to be from an equal status, tribe, to marry from them.
I'm wondering if this novel was written today by the same person, how would it look like? When I was reading the book, I was just thinking that, okay, this guy wrote this book in the 60s. How did they feel? For me, he was just trying to reflect how they felt towards colonization, how they felt towards certain subjects, how they saw women and depicted women back in the days, right? So it's just a thought that came to my mind is like, if he's writing this novel today, how would that novel look like? What's going to be the outcome? How is he going to depict women today? How is he going to depict the hidden form of colonialization in the world today? How is Mustafa going to react?
Yeah.
That came to my mind, that it was like striking the way he portrayed certain things or he spoke about certain things. And it just like, I don't know, this light bulb came in my head and it's like, okay, if this novel was being written today, how would it look like?
Well, it certainly would be different, because it's different context, different political scene, different geopolitics, uh, as I said, the whole world now, there's now internet, the social media, there's lots of things lots of interplaying factors that, that have changed. And even this change would differ from a metropolitan or a big city, okay, than a village or a rural area within the same country itself. Think about Cairo and another village somewhere. So it would differ, but I can see that many of us here are born, raised in Egypt, and then we move to other countries, and I think we each have our own experience, and it is, I mean, speaking from mine, it is definitely so different, than either Mustafa or the narrator's experience, like I'm of course aware of colonization and everything, but I see that when I'm successful, when I do things good or even better than, and I'm Egyptian and English is my second language, then that's me, and I see how much people respect that and appreciate that. There are people, yes, who would always, act politely, but, inwardly thinking, who is she or this or that? But this is their own business, it's not my business. So the idea, if there is an idea of revenge, and revenge in nowadays in our modern time, is a big word, okay, you can assert yourself, assert your being, celebrate, and it doesn't have to at all contradict with celebrating your legacy and taking pride in who you are and where you come from, I think.
Yes, exactly, Amira. This is what I was saying about values. So you're winning, but you're keeping your values.
Exactly.
But
And I think someone also mentioned, I don't know if that was you, Dalia, about this inferiority. Okay, I think it depends and starts with, do you really feel inferior from inside, from within, or not? Okay, because when you do feel that, the others, it's like they have antenna for that. They can pick it, very easily, okay, and then use it against you. But if you are confident, you stand on solid grounds, you're knowledgeable and honoring of your background, okay, then nobody can, do this to you, I think.
But on a very basic level, though, has the understanding of the other really changed? What we think as the others and what they think as the others.
No, it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed one bit.
I think on
At the
individual
core of
levels,
it, okay, we might not have this like the reverse colonialism urge to go out there and revenge, and they kind of still have the urge to come and colonize. I mean, we see it, right? But if we just sort of get rid of that, at the core is the understanding of the other really shifted, or have we seen a major change in that? When you speak to your average, okay, I'm not talking about people who are well-traveled, exposed more, because those are like the 0.0001, all of us here. Okay, it might seem like because everybody you know is like you, it might seem like a lot of people are like you. But the reality is, if you look at your average Egyptian and your average European, your average North American, has the understanding of the other really changed since whenever?
I would say
at the core. How many
yes,
of you?
okay.
I
would
lived in
say
Canada, and there wasn't a and I lived there, and I come back, and I go there and come back. My kids, 3 kids, they all went to school at different phases. There wasn't a single time that they weren't asked, "Oh, you're from Egypt. Do you take a camel to school?" I know this is very cliched phrase, okay? But this is from, when did we go the first time we went? My kids went to school 2007. And then they went again school in 2009 and then again in 2013. And then think about it the other way. What are our sort of stereotypes of Europeans and North Americans? Have we actually done the work also to really understand them? They've not done much work, I don't feel. Maybe we've done a little bit more work as a result of colonization. We were exposed to them more. But at the core of this book, this is what he's talking about. Is there a way to merge the two? Is there a resolution to this? There isn't. And I don't think if he was writing this book today, maybe the characters might be different, maybe the context might be different, the events might be different, but I think the central theme is of incoherence, in lack of, we just don't get each other. I think that would still be there.
One thing that remains is that we remain to be more knowledgeable about them than they are about us. Okay, and I think this is because, again, it goes back to the early colonization, because usually, and think about it in very simplest form, okay, and I think that's taken a bit from, like feminist theory, okay, women and men, okay, women know more about men, their psyche, the psychology, how they think, more than men know about us. And it's only because they used to be the oppressor, or they are the oppressor. Okay, you can choose a different word. Okay, but they are more superior. Okay, so always, okay, the less superior will know more about the superior. Why? Because number one, you fear them, so you want to know how to protect yourself, so you study them very well. Okay, and number two, you fall under their charm. Okay, so you want to please them. So this is why you study them better. Okay, which is why men, speaking about men and women, men don't make enough effort, to understand their women or how they feel, because already they are in the better position. They're already getting what they want and what they need. Okay, this is changing now, speaking of on the men-women, relationship level. In terms of the North and the South, okay, again, we know more about them, we're more knowledgeable, okay, but I think maybe I am wrong or overgeneralizing that
who
in
knows
Europe,
more about them, Amira? Who?
yes,
Me and you, the likes of me and you. Okay?
yeah, no, but again,
not your Egyptian in the village.
even the Egyptian in the village, they have their own stereotypical thinking. That is, I can say that it is also slightly changing in movie because of the access. Those in the villages have cell phones. Those in the villages, they see things. They are on TikTok more than you and I are or ever will be. Okay, so it is shifting at a slower pace, yes, but no, they know more than the villager, more than the white Northern American villager knows about, the South remains to know more about it. But I could be wrong, but from my own experience, okay, I think Europeans, more than Northern Americans, okay, they are more and more interested to know and more respectful, of who you are and where you come from, I think Europeans are less ignorant about the other. Like, again, my daughter, younger one, went to school here. Okay, nobody ever mentioned the camel thing. Okay, you come to school and you live in a tent or you come in camel. No. Okay, so I think in Europe also there is, I don't know if about the North America, and maybe Dalia, because you live here, you can say. One thing actually I have problems with is the overcompensation. Okay, some of them and many of them, because they know that they have colonized, okay, so they turn the blind eye toward a wrongdoing of a person from a certain culture group because they do not want to be labeled as racist or discriminating. Okay, in my circle, it is not working well for women from our cultural group. I call us like the olive skin or the beige kind of tone. It is working so well for dark-skinned women, for Asian women. Okay, so for example, in a job or in any university or any school or any place where they want to talk about cultural diversity, you have a photo of a Black woman and a photo of a brown woman. Yes, Dalia, okay, and a white woman. That's it. These are all the women in the world. Khalas. I said, where is us? There's a whole big region spectrum, of color. Okay, no. All of the research is on, there's a lot of research, even medical research, like on, on dark women or on Asian women more than it is on, women.
Ethnicity, we're always other.
Exactly. Even when you apply for a job or anything, you drop down at the drop down list. Are you Black African? Are you white South African? Are you, I don't know what?
Yeah, 15 or 20 things, but
there's
there.
never us. We are the other.
Yeah.
And then another box open, like, okay, where are you from? So
but
yes.
I think it also depends on the place.
Yes.
And the city. To be honest, I'm lucky enough to be in Manchester, and it's very diverse. They celebrate diversity, and they're very aware of the South and everything that we go through. Actually, and I think it's our job to teach them more. So, for example, in Ramadan, I invited like 6 of my English friends to iftar, and they loved it. I wanted to show them how we celebrated, and they were very interested.
Yeah.
I made some Egyptian food, and they love it when you show them your culture as well. They celebrate it with you. I think, but I can't generalize this. I cannot, because definitely there are others who are not very happy
Definitely.
about people migrating. So there are both, but still, I think now they're more accepting of like being all together in this world, not
Yes.
seeing all the differences.
Yeah.
But that's not the government. I'm talking about individuals, and that's the problem because, when they said about his mother that she did nothing, she was passive, and it was him who had to take matters in hand. So I think this is the same that's happening now. So it's not the powerful figures that are doing anything. So individuals are taking it in hand, be it right or wrong, but they're trying their best with their own knowledge, even though he was still young and he didn't have uh, knowledge or tools to do this. But he was left on his own to choose.
Yeah.
I agree with Dalia, exactly that we're the ones who actually have to educate the people around us of who we are and where we stand and what our culture is like and what our values are like. And I actually see that more and more because my son is married to a Canadian, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show them, okay, you know what? This is who we are. This is what we do. This is Ramadan. This is this. And when we did the Katb Kitab and they got married, I did it in a very, very traditional Egyptian way. So they were like fascinated by that. It's like, but again, for me, in my mind, and I don't know if I'm just being too harsh on them or not, is that they were fascinated because this is from the other side. And everything that I was trying to do, or maybe I was trying to also incorporate some stuff from their culture to make it easier on them, but they wanted to feel that this is like Arabian Nights, right? This is what they see on movies and stuff like this. They didn't want anything to do with the Western stuff. So even the dessert table, they wanted all Oriental desserts. When the Imam came, they wanted him to be dressed in the traditional way. And so, again, it is like Dana was saying, they're not going to change. We're not going to change. We just have to find a middle ground where we could meet and to respect each other and to educate each other as much as we can. This is how I personally see it. And this is how I was reading also the book is like he's trying to portray something, the stereotype of the East and the West, right? And it was so vivid. Yes, the language was not the best. Women were used as objects and everything. But again, uh, just food for thought. If this, again, I'm bringing it back, if this was being written today, it would have been more or less the same, but in different contexts.
I mean, what you described, Dina, is this enchantment is still the same. The enchantment with the East or disenchantment.
Yes,
It
yes,
it
exactly.
hasn't changed. It's exactly like you're describing, all the women he seduced. That's what they wanted. They didn't want him to show what he learned in the West or to show what he acquired from the West. They wanted him in his most raw African form. And
Exactly. But
that's
this is
this is what they well, this is they were enchanted with that. They were enamored with that. This was like the mystical side, and this is what they want. And this is still, as you're saying, alive and
the same
thriving
thing.
today.
Yeah, I just the simple example I was telling you, the Katb Kitab, the way Ali's in-laws wanted to portray it to the rest of their family. They're enchanted by the way we do things, right? And they just wanted everything authentic, everything Oriental,
maybe out of respect, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to, belittle what they did, but at the same time, it's because this is the way they see us. This is the way they want to portray us. It's not a bad thing, but again, there is a stereotype, right?
But sometimes, again, the individuals, they do have a part. So, for example, one of my friends, she told me when she was here at Iftar and I was just laughing and we were talking, she told me, I have a Pakistani neighbor. She lives next door, and I saw her last week. She was carrying some bags, and then I was just asking her how are you, and she just started screaming, "I still have to go and make food. I'm fasting. I'm really grumpy. I have to go to the mosque." And she told me she was very grumpy. And then I was trying to offer help, and then she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I snapped at you." And she went. I mean, I was kind of, I don't know, I felt really disappointed because why do you portray like fasting as a really bad thing that you have to do? If you don't want to do it, you just don't do it. But don't go let them think that we all do it like that. I didn't like the portray that, so I was happy that I've changed this, you know,
Yes.
for my friend. It's not for the world. It's just for one person. So sometimes this one person can give an impression that the whole culture is like that or the whole religion is like that, you know?
No, I agree with you, Dalia. Definitely. I definitely agree with you that it takes one to, well, if we rely on other people trying to change and we're not doing anything like the author himself, for example, no change is going to happen. But at the same time, why am I taking what that individual friend of yours said to you as at face value? You know,
Mm.
again, I've been working for so long in Canada, and there are things when you see them from the outside, they say, "Oh, Arabs do this, Arabs do that, or Muslims do this, Muslims do that." And then when you actually sit with those people, you know what's inside of them. And that's the same. The same goes for us, or the same maybe they're saying about us, right? Because for them, we're from a different world that they know nothing about. Yes, to your point, that we're trying to educate them to the best we can. But at the same time, we're also trying to defend ourselves. It's not just education, it's defense. We're trying to portray that we're the good people still. But why do I have to show you that I'm good if you can't see the good in me?
Well, I don't think you have to, and I think, I mean, I don't think anyone should change anyone to start with, okay? And if we are to change some perspectives, okay, as Dalia was saying, you just simply easily do it by being you, okay? Just modeling, and walking the talk, I don't have, I never speak for all Muslims. I never speak for all Arabs, I'm always, I always try to give context and say, for an Egyptian middle class, or Egyptian middle class city, girl or family, that's what we do, okay? Because other places could be different, okay? And that is what, and this is just what you do. And again, I'm saying this, and I realize that it's a very subjective thing, because it depends on each of us own personal experience. And you can see that, our experiences are, we have common experiences in some points, and then we have different experiences in other points. But you just be you, you just be you, I think, and you stay true, to what you believe in, to your belief system, and that's it. And there are people also from the other, okay, who are also the same, okay? And I think there are people, and it's becoming even more and more, who take interest in you, and they want to know more about you. as much as you take interest in them. So I don't know. I don't see it much as an area of tension or conflict, you know. And maybe I'm wrong, but
No, you're not. You're not wrong. You know, to your point, everyone has their background or their experiences and everything. But what you're seeing in the world today is what is proving what I'm saying. You know, that especially in North America, right? North America is a melting pot. So holding on to your identity is not that easy. Holding
yeah.
on to making sure that they understand who you are, that is not that easy. And that's you're entitled to your own views is not that easy. So coming from that background, you just find yourself, it's like, okay, why am I the one who always has to prove that I'm right? You know what I mean? And in this is why I'm telling you, when I was reading the story, all that came to my mind was, if this novel was being written today, how are things going to be like, you know? And like I said earlier, that it's not that I didn't feel bad for the women, but I felt that, again, this is revenge for what's happening. This is his way of voicing his anger to what happened to him and in a colonialized country, you know? So definitely, Amira, that, yeah, definitely everyone's perspective is going to be a little bit different from the other. Life in the West is not all dandy.
No. And
So,
no
but
one's
yeah,
ever said that. No.
and
It
it's
is not.
not you know, back to the novel, like when because Season of Migration to the North, typically um it's the other way around. But when they, like Mustafa Said wants to go, he goes back up, you know, whether he's intentionally, you know, wants to get revenge or just something that sort of happens while he's there, he realizes he can get that kind of revenge, reverse colonialism, using that revenge on the women. I don't think any of it is. And when people sort of feel like they want to leave the South and go to the North, seeking something different or something better, it's not as liberating ultimately. I don't think it ends up being as purely liberating as the expectation of it is. If that makes any sense.
But again, I think it varies, and it's a matter of priorities, you know, and what you think is more important to you than other things.
Yes, and what are you after?
Yes, you know, it's not that moving to the north means that, you know, you totally sort of, you know, skin yourself, you know, and you know, and be and get rid of all of who you are and forget who you are and lose yourself,
Yeah.
you know, in the more dominant culture. No, you know, people are always on the move, you know, and it again, it's not a matter of struggle, like, you know, like it's not, again, speaking from a modern perspective, like, you know, like, I did not come here or you did not come here to defeat them, you know, you came here because you were looking for something, okay, or you're after something,
But
and
maybe
this
you
thing is,
thought you could integrate or assimilate.
yeah,
But
you could, but even this varies,
that's what
even
I mean.
this varies.
It doesn't necessarily happen as
Uh,
smoothly as you think it would.
no, it is never a smooth thing, you know, and as that was said earlier here, you know, as long as, you know, I respect who you are, you know, and I respect your set of values or belief system, and you reciprocally you respect mine, okay, خلاص, okay, we could coexist. I think the struggle arises when, you know, you don't, it's not equal or reciprocal.
But you know, Amira, so last weekend I volunteered to go at a camp with my son. He's 7 years old, and I felt very isolated and lonely. Uh, and I really wanted to go back home, home as in Egypt, okay? I hated their songs, their sense of humor. I've been living here for 7 years. I have friends and I'm totally okay with it and everything. But when it was like 2 days, 2 full days with people I don't know, and then seeing my son getting all this culture, all those weird songs that they're singing together, and not knowing. So, for example, if he would hear something, he speaks Arabic and everything, but he wouldn't get the sense of humor. He wouldn't get the inner jokes, you know?
Mm.
Sometimes it hurts. No, I don't want this. So
Yeah.
sometimes how
Yeah.
you're perceiving all the culture is
Yeah.
no.
It is not easy, and like everything else, it comes at a cost.
Mm.
Yani it comes at a cost, like everything. But what I know is it is going to be much easier for your son than for you, because he's growing up, where he is. So to him, this is what he knows, or this is, mostly. Okay, he knows, of course, he's Egyptian. He goes back to visit family in Egypt, yes, but his adaptability and flexibility, assimilating, is, of course, not like us.
Definitely.
Not like us, I mean, they're better, and in this sometimes, again, sometimes you fear that they forget, like I noticed, for example, that with my girls, I've always like, okay, come and watch this with me. Do you know who this is? Okay, it's as if, I want to tie them more to the culture, because I fear that one day you're going to forget about it, and think of yourself as a world kind of citizen. No, you're Egyptian. Okay. And yes, so it is one of your fears, as a parent, specifically. Yes. And I mean, all I remember about, going back to the camel story, Dana, all I remember is that when I first moved to the UK and my daughter went to school, she didn't get the camel, yes, but now I know what she got. Okay, they asked her if she was mixed, and Nelly couldn't understand what they mean by mixed. She says, she came home and she says, they asking me if I'm mixed. Okay, it's because, yes, they did not know that people like her, again, I'm talking a lot about the skin color, that this color palette exists unless a black mates with a white person. So the result is our color. Okay. And she's like, no, I'm not mixed. I'm Egyptian. They're like, yes, Yani, but are you mixed? She says, no. When you are Egyptian, this is, for the majority of us, this is what we look like. So they thought, again, the kids, because they thought she was from one white parent, one Jamaican parent in specific. Because in their knowledge, there's a lot of people from Jamaica, in this country. So they think that, so yes, now I remember that.
Also, going back to the book, the author was almost drowning towards the end because he was lost. So here's where the sense of identity needs to be. You have to have your sense of identity and to be grounded.
Yes, yes.
But the whole journey of understanding yourself and the identity, I mean, I think the reason that he's in the water is very symbolic, right? It's something it never stops.
Yeah.
It never ends. Like, you're always like the river, okay? It's always ongoing. This journey of understanding yourself, of the self-identity crisis you might have, right? And this is why he says, help at the end,
And speaking of water, Mustafa, like, they don't say it to us clearly, whether Mustafa drowned or committed suicide or just chose to disappear and vanish.
Don't know.
We don't know. But we know that it's a kind of tragic also end to him, a kind of pessimistic, choice for an ending to Mustafa, that even though things were working for him, a good wife, two boys, okay, he had enough money, he was well off, doing well. But I think again the damage that was caused, that happened to him was in many ways like insalvageable. It could not be redeemed.
His
So
inner world was not like his outer world.
صح, yes, 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 yes. He lived with that sort of conflict, yes. Even that woman that he killed, his wife, what's her name, Jean something, you feel that his relationship with her is very, yes, it reflects the symbolic relationship between the South and North, or colonized and colonizer. There's this love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
You feel there's contempt. You feel that that she looks down on him, but at the same time she is so infatuated and so in love with him, and likewise, he is. And one of them had to die. I mean, according to Tayyip Saleh, or according to Mustafa Saeed, Tayyip representing Mustafa, of course. So
One of them
yes,
had to win.
yes, and someone has to go. Someone had to go. For this novel specifically, they could not coexist.
They cannot coexist in the end.
Yes, because again, put it within the time frame. Okay, this was maybe Mustafa represents the first or second generation of being colonized, and this was 60 years ago.
But I mean, those of you, especially in the UK, every now and then, I catch little bits and pieces of news of what's happening there. They're not really coexisting now either. The bigger picture, right? I mean, you have your little tiny sort of your circle of friends, right? You tried to change how they think, but when you see sort of the bigger events happening, that involve the immigrants and the British, it's only escalating the issue. And I'm not going to speak
first.
any kind of like expert. I'm saying I literally just see headlines, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's more understanding currently. It seems like there's more divergence.
Yes, but I think it's mostly where the power is, because I see regular people just trying to accept everyone. So I've been to helping at a charity. They have people from everywhere in the world, and they have so many from Syria, from Afghanistan, from everywhere. And the people who volunteer there are English people. I've been to several events at churches, and they do get police to help them and tell them if someone stops you, you need to report it. You should not feel afraid. You should always feel safe. I mean, they're trying. And one of my friends, she took like a 4 month course to see how she can help them emotionally and mentally. So I see this. I see people trying to help all the time. And we had a flood, and the people who were in a hotel, they needed to be moved. Okay? And the amount of help they got was incredible. But at the same time, there was another hotel, there was a protest, but I think because it was only males.
It was only males, yes. I know the hotel, and very close to a girls' school.
Yes, and
Yes.
to be honest, I would be
too if I have a girl,
yes.
And would pass this hotel, regardless of which cultural group, and just the idea of her walking when it's dark, at 4 o'clock, walking alone, and being stopped by, by just the thought of, or the idea, no, I would feel the same. Yes. Yes, I mean, generally speaking, again, Dana, to answer the question is, no, people generally here are, no, I would not call them discriminating, or no. I mean, the vast majority of them are not. Okay. And the truth is, I mean, I live in Leicester. So Leicester is very also culturally diverse. Okay. So people here, they would not give or stop at someone who's all covered, or someone who's not covered, or someone who eats this or does not eat that at all. it's this way. When I go to London, for example, London is like, again, it's like a no man's city. You know, you walk in the street and you see a gazillion, okay, people from different parts of the world, and nobody minds anyone, you know. So there is not that. However, from my own observation, I would say that there is a culture group I see that is I mean, I don't want to sound again like that I'm being elitist or anything, but the average sort of liberal Muslims, like, you know, like women like us, for example, okay, we have no problem, they have no problem with us, okay, but there are, you know, there are other groups, okay, who choose to be secluded, who choose to withdraw, you know, and keep it closed on them. Okay, and that's just my personal opinion, that they are the most difficult to assimilate. Okay, like again, one of the schools my daughter went to, there were girls who would not shake hands with boys. Okay, and these girls are British. I mean, not white English, but these girls are born here. Their parents have been born here. It's the grandparent who is an immigrant. Okay, but they would not shake hands. Okay.
Yes, my son once came to me. He was in year 3, and he told me one of his friends, she told him, I cannot play with boys anymore. Actually, I will play with you, but I will not tell my dad.
Yes.
I was like, seriously?
Yes. My daughter's prom, I remember the prom was the second day of Eid al-Fitr. Okay. And many of Muslim Asian students did not attend the prom. Why? Because haram. Why haram? Because it was second day of Bayram. What is that? We cannot clap and dance when it's Bayram. So again, this doesn't come from us, you know, from, you know, like Egyptians or North African or Lebanese or, you know, middle class, you know, kind of moderate, you know, thinking families. So these kids, they have their own social group, they have their own WhatsApp group. Their parents also make the gatherings closed on them. Like, I'm not invited to this, even though I'm a Muslim as well. They don't invite me. So that's how I see it, actually, not from the average, you know, white working class or middle class, you know, English or European. No.
And also, Dana, I think it depends on the city. So I've lived in the south, Cornwall, it's very south, England, for a couple of years. It was only white, okay? So my son didn't have a problem playing with them there, or they didn't treat him differently, but we were not included. I didn't make friends, so my friends were Italians, were European, but not, they call themselves Cornish, so they're not even British, you know? But
yes,
it was very different there from my experience here. However, they were nice. Nice from the outside, but they wouldn't try to make you feel welcome. Yeah, that was my experience.
It is.
But
very
Dalia, this is what I've been
dependent.
saying. This is what I've been saying, is that it's not that we're looking at ourselves as inferior, is that they have this supremacy, right? The white is white,
Yes,
and
but
the rest is different, right?
But I think it's very, dependable on where you are. I think America is totally different. My sister lives in Texas, and I think North America is really different than Europe.
Yeah, for sure. You know,
They
my
don't
daughter,
have enough knowledge about others, and they don't even have enough knowledge about European. It's like, yeah, if we go to Europe, but people here, they do travel a lot.
Yes.
So
I
they're more
understand.
exposed.
I lived in Europe most of my life as well, you know. And I see the difference. I could clearly see the difference between the Europeans and the North Americans and how they deal. But again, the thing is that we always say, oh, they're trying, oh, they're this, but why are we just, saying that they're trying? Why isn't it a given that they should do that? Why is it always trying? They're trying to accommodate us. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do that. Why? That's my question. This is the question that always comes to my mind, is that why? Why is it always us, as whether we're Middle Eastern or other ethnicities or other cultures, that we have to prove ourselves that
No,
we
because
are
we're living in
okay?
their country. I think it would be the same if they not colonizing it. I think if if you find a foreigner in Egypt, I think it would be really harder than how we are living here.
I
So
don't think so. I don't know.
she
Personally,
wouldn't make friends that easily.
maybe, I don't know. I can't put myself in their place. Maybe that could be the case. I'm not really sure. But the fact is that we're from where I am right now, or from my experiences, or from what's happening in the world, is that we're trying so hard as a race, or as as ethnicities, to prove ourselves to the world.
Yeah.
But that
I
would
don't know. I mean,
linger.
sometimes actually, I think it's sometimes the opposite with me. Sometimes I feel I'm privileged, you know? And I mean, yes, I mean, I'm sure, of course, that sometimes, yes, you have to prove yourself, but no, I don't think I don't think, for example, I'd make more effort to prove myself in here than I would have been in Egypt,
Yes, but it
to be
would be
honest.
different. So, I mean, here, when you are being yourself, they notice you and they understand more about you. But if you're in Egypt, you just live.
Yeah,
You're there.
and yes, and again, as you were saying, people here, travel a lot, move a lot, are very much into politics, so they know a lot. And you find that with the more knowledge people have, the more appreciative and respectable they are of you. Okay. And I don't know. I don't think I know that it was difficult. Actually, sometimes I feel I am the one, who's just, sort of, like, sort of, bragging that, oh, I'm Egyptian. Okay, I'm Egyptian. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with Dina. We don't need to prove ourselves to
No.
anyone. But I think the main difference is if you are living in their country or if you're living in yours. Same will go if they are living in their own or they're trying to get yours. So
Yes.
that's a different thing.
Yeah, it is a different thing. But having said that, we also need to change, speaking of Egyptians, for example, okay, because some of us, and I see this with people who've never been out of Egypt, still have still have this sort of inferiority, thinking that just because he's white means he's smarter. Just because he's white means he can get away with things. No, this is not true. Or just because she's white, she's more beautiful.
Yes, just because he's British, he can be a teacher at any school in Egypt. So
or just because they speak English, they could be a very good, English teacher because it's their native language. No. So those things, when you stay enclosed in your own, local environment and you are not exposed, okay, you tend to lean more towards those beliefs or perceptions or stereotypes. So likewise, when the North or a European person comes to live in Egypt, okay, we should not also too much idolize them as if they are better or different, because they're not. And that when you live in their country, that in many ways you are more privileged than them. and you had an easier life in Egypt than their life here. Okay, but you have to experience it. Yes.
I think it's safe to say that colonialism is what it was. And as a result, we're all living sort of the lingering effects of that. In whichever way
Definitely.
all of us have to navigate it or mitigate it, it's there. I don't think it's ever going to disappear completely on a big scale. You know, we can work as individuals to maybe stop seeing each other. You know, I think remember Dina, we had said in one of the very first calls, you know, where it's to see each other as one and stop focusing on the differences and
Yeah.
stop saying diverse and stop saying we're one. We're not diverse, we're the same. We're not all these diverse people, ethnicities, religions. We're actually at the core, we're all just one. And maybe it needs more of that narrative ongoing for us to maybe potentially finally be free of the traces of colonialism.
Yeah.
But as it
Yeah,
stands,
totally agree. Yeah.
we're all dealing with it. We're all dealing with these residual effects years and years on.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, ladies. As usual, this was a very, very, very riveting conversation.
It was a heated one.
Yeah, but on all friendly terms and grounds, يعني.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's
Very
amazing.
political.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the book, by the
Yes,
way.
yes.
I loved the old woman that you guys were talking about
بنت
earlier.
المكذوب.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
Bint al-Makzoub. For me, she was like, oh my God, this woman is hilarious.
And on some level, like I want to be able to talk like that. Like I want to have that freedom, like, you know, open
Yes, but
throat
did you
chakra.
notice, Dana, that I remember my mother's grandmother? Okay, I remember her. She used to speak in her, you know, I was young, but I could understand, you know, بتسpeak من غير filter. You know, I think women, when they reach a certain age, خلاص بقى, you know?
I mean, I
يعني,
definitely feel it now. Like I'm starting to feel like in my 50s, I can start to like, you know what? Like I'm just gonna say whatever. Like it's
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
see that.
Very true.
I can start to feel that. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe in like 10 years, 20 years, there you go. It's just say whatever I want to say. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. And one final anecdote for Dina, speaking about كتب الكتاب وكندا. My brother is married to a Tunisian. So we traveled to Tunis, you know, for the صداق, which is كتب كتاب
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
الفاميلي they lived in Tunis, the capital, تونس العاصمة. But الفاميلي بتاعتها chose to give us the whole experience. Okay, الفاميلي originally from an island. وهم in Tunis, they have in each there's like us in Egypt, there's a national dress for each part, you know, of Tunis. So they chose إنه العروسة instead of wearing traditional يعني bride's gown, لا لبست the costume of the island. Okay, and they brought band from the island. Okay, which is not doesn't happen even in their everyday, you know, capital life. But because we are Egyptians, and because we were going, you know, to them, they wanted to give us كل حاجة, and they even told
the whole
us,
experience.
yes, and they even told us إنه when the bride, I don't know, is walking where mother-in-law, my mom, and me being the sister of the groom, I have to give her gold and cash like this in front of everybody else. So we were like, but we don't do that, you know, like you buy her a present or something. So again, everything was done على I thought that like we were like tourists, okay? And they're giving us again the touristic experience and the flavor of it. But now I'm thinking that maybe they did that because they knew that this is a culture marrying into another culture.
Yes.
So
yes.
in a way, you want to assert your own and go back to your roots.
Exactly. And this is exactly what I was trying to do
بالظبط
personally.
كده. Yes, yes. But we enjoyed it big time. So I'm
Well,
sure
yeah,
that the
yeah, yeah.
Canadians, of course,
Oh my God, they
enjoyed
loved it.
المأذون والشيخ والجبة والعمة
They
everything.
loved every bit of it. They loved every bit of it. It was like, for them, it was like another world.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies. A couple of housekeeping notes. Next week, we have our session at the same time here. Inshallah, I'm going back to Cairo next week. So this is our last session at this time. We'll go back to our normally scheduled sessions. Not so next week we're still on this time. The week after is Sham Nisim, so it's a holiday. We don't have a session. The week after that, but I'll be putting all this in the group, is when we will have our session back at regular Cairo time, which is 7 p.m. Cairo time. All right. Next week our session is just on health and detoxing and fruits and all of that. And then the session after that will be another book session. Will be The Prophet is our next book. All right. So you have plenty of time. I would also recommend, because The Prophet is a short book, we have a couple of really long books coming up. I wouldn't wait. I would take advantage of the fact that The Prophet is a short book, maybe finish it this week if you haven't already, and start on the long books ahead of time. So don't wait to start the long books after you finish The Prophet, like sort of do it in order. Because we have that week off, also, we have a few weeks till we get to the first of the long books. Get a head start on them. All right. And yeah, can't wait for the fruit detoxing. Can't wait for that experience. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you again next week at the same time still. All right, ladies. Thank you for
Okay,
another.
sorry, Dana, I
Yeah.
just want to ask something. Should we stop the celery juice as well?
Yes.
So lemon water, yes, but celery, no.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Okay,
Thank you.
ladies. Have a wonderful rest of your
Thank
day.
you.
Have a wonderful evening. I will
Thank
see you all
you.
next week, ladies. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.